It is our belief that the Summit of the Future presents an opportunity to reinvigorate and, more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, to recalibrate the existing multilateral system. And we view it as an important catalyst to make good on promises to reform the current system of global governance, to enable it to be more representative and more inclusive, in particular, ladies and gentlemen, for countries of the African continent. We therefore agree as South Africa with the UN Secretary General's statement that the Summit of the Future is probably a once-in-a-generation opportunity to forge global consensus and deepen progress on the priorities of the 2030 SDGs, in line with Africa's continental agenda as encapsulated in the AU Agenda 2063, which in the entirety of its 7 aspirations is the embodiment of the aspirations of the ordinary people which all of us seek to serve, framed eloquently so in the Africa that we want, that we envisage to unfold in 2063. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, we are all confident that the completion of the first decade of the implementation of Agenda 2063, which primarily focus on convergence, have been an important building block towards the second decade of implementation, which speaks about the need for acceleration and of the implementation of that type of agenda. It is therefore our submission as South Africa that the Summit of the Future presents a unique corridor, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure that we do things differently with more urgency, that we identify decisive action that will ensure that a positive impact in the lives of ordinary people are made, and that we, as a generation of the 21st century, presents a very unique and different opportunities for the new generation to deepen the transformation of the international system of power, governance, finance, debt, trade, and technology, so that they would be able to work for all countries of the world and ensure that developing countries such as ourselves are not left out of opportunities that it envisaged to present. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, following the AU Executive Council retreat in Kigali, Rwanda in October 2023, all Africa's foreign ministers were mandated to continue to provide the much needed political leadership and advocacy as we deliver the decade of acceleration of the AU Agenda 2063 from 2024 to 2033. It was agreed at that retreat, ladies and gentlemen, that the second 10-year implementation plan should be based on Africa's reinvigorated engagement with, in particular, our development partners, as well as present a unique opportunity for Africa to take its place in the multilateral fora with international organizations within the UN system and beyond. The Summit of the Future, therefore, presents a further opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to make good on promises made and achieve the development, peace, and security, and more importantly, human rights objectives, which Africa have canvassed, have engaged on, that will entail and encapsulate and realize the betterment of the African continent for all of our people, and by implication, the rest of the world. In this regard, the ownership and domestication of the AU Agenda 2063 calls on all African citizens and its partners on the continent, in the diaspora, and it includes all state and non-state actors to join hands in delivering on Africa's blueprint. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the format, structure, and identified participants for today's seminar should aptly explore how the Summit of the Future and its key outcome document entitled The Path of the Future can address Africa's needs through Agenda 2063, second 10-year implementation plan, and related AU flagship projects. In contextualizing, therefore, the discussions for our seminar today, we should all be mindful of and remind ourselves about the dialectical convergence which the SDG 2030 and Agenda 2063 presents to ourselves as participants. There should therefore be an ongoing commitment to ensure that we harmonize these structures and processes related to deliver on both these very important agendas. It is our recommendation as South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, that deliberations of today should be contextualized against the backdrop of supporting the decision of the AU Commission Chairperson and the UNSG to agree on the two agendas with one plan. Therefore, the implementation of the Pact of the Future and at the global level should be advocated and championed against the relevant continental, regional, and domestic frameworks in place so as to ensure, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, the heightening of synergies and coherence relating thereto. A key element of the Pact of the Future is working towards a new agenda for peace, which is a vision on how to strengthen multilateral action for peace in the current global environment. The recent reports indicated that more civilians were killed in armed conflicts over the last year than during any other year for more than a decade. That this, ladies and gentlemen, is our submission. It's an antithesis to the African Agenda 2063, which amongst others advocate for the cessation of hostilities in order to ensure the African blueprint becomes a reality indeed in our lifetime. As South Africa, we have consistently pursued a foreign policy embedded, fortified, ladies and gentlemen, on peace diplomacy. A foreign policy which was focused on the political settlement of disputes through the attainment of just, sustainable, and lasting peace, while simultaneously, ladies and gentlemen, and probably more important, to ensure that we address the root causes of conflict. We have done this in conforming with the principles of the UN Charter and international law. It is our submission, ladies and gentlemen, that the failure to uniformly and fairly implement international law in all conflict situations globally have substantively weakened the normative frameworks of international accountability and have made the world less safe today than yesteryear. South Africa would continue to advocate for a world where the use of force, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, is replaced through the instruments of dialogue and negotiations. A world where the use of force is actually prohibited and not only regulated. These principles, we hope, through your diligent participation, would be reaffirmed in the Summit of the Future. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our responsibility to use this once-in-a-generation summit to use its respective platforms and outcomes to address the injustices of the past, the challenges and opportunities of the present, and the objectives of the future. To leave a world better than how we actually have found it. I wish to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, with a quote from a prominent Pan-Africanist, the first president of Mozambique and leader of Frelimo, Samora Machel. I quote, "We should be mindful that international solidarity is not an act of charity. It is in fact an act of unity between allies fighting on different terrains towards the same objective. The foremost of these objectives is to aid the development of humanity to the highest level possible." Unquote. Thank you very much, Program Director.